grander. Despite his recent victories, most professional odds makers still considered Seabiscuit a long shot. The smart money was on Rosemont, the lightning-fast 5-year-old that had recently trounced 1935's Triple Crown winner. Nearly $400,000 was riding on the contest, an all-time betting high for Western racing. The entire field broke at once in a mad dash for position.
Here on the outside comes the Rosemont in the position.
Pollard patiently threaded Seabiscuit through the pack before finally tucking him down the front run.
Half a mile, and the train will put the
Rosemont, meanwhile, was on the move from behind, darting in and out of the field.
Seabiscuit is now on the outside,
Of the home stretch, Seabiscuit swung into the lead with Rosemont hard on his heels.
Seabiscuit has got the lead. Everybody's running right to the end.
And they were running down this stretch with clear lead, and Rip Pollard froze. This was the biggest moment in his career, and he stopped urging the horse. For 15 strides, there, and he started slowing down.
With only 50 yards to go, Pollard suddenly swung and dropped the whip across Seabiscuit's flank. The two horses run the wire together. 200. But his winning average was so high that he still ranked among the best money riders in the country. Not surprisingly, Wolf was confident about the 100-grander. He even made Pollard a promise. When Seabiscuit won, they split the jockey's $10,000 share right down the middle. Even though he lost the 100-grander for the second time in a row, Seabiscuit had turned in one of the most dazzling performances in the history of thoroughbred racing. Fouled early by hopeless long shot, he catapulted from 12th place to first in just half a mile, only to wind up in a fierce homestretch drive against a horse toting 30 fewer pounds. And still, he only lost by a nose.
The best race I've ever seen a horse run was the day that State Champ beat him in the San Diego handicap. Now Charlie Woman's got him clear. I'm trying to find his way through there. It's this horse was 130 pounds at this time. Stunning the other horse 30 pounds. And making that big move to pass all those horses. And then that State Champ kept running at him like he was going to run right by him, and then Seabiscuit just took it up. Now there goes Seabiscuit going to the front, but look out for State Champ. Here he comes, State Champ. He runs an unbelievable way to the stage. What happened? He kept running. He kept running even after he got away from trouble. Who did that? He's strong. You know, I think when the gate went up, I gave him a bad start. Yes, that's right. 8 and 8, 9 straight, 380 a place, and they were the show. $408,000 with wages on this one race.
Now that all the hullabaloo on the handicap has died down when Turfstride rode, the time has come to assert that Seabiscuit was the best horse in the race. It was an opinion that would be voiced over and over again in newspapers from Syracuse to Sacramento. Never before had a racehorse been so widely praised for losing.
someday I'll come back and be the great guy I was destined to be. Look at Seabiscuit, he did it.
All across the country, people who never even been to a racetrack caught the fever. One sports writer called it Seabiscuititis.
People would crowd by the tracks when he went across the country. In little remote towns, people would crowd up next to the train to see if they could get a move into them. He was merchandised to a phenomenal degree. There was Seabiscuit multi-tax sold on Fifth Avenue. There were at least 5 Seabiscuit board games. There was a Seabiscuit pinball machine. He had his own line of oranges. He endorsed dry cleaning services and hotels. Absolutely everything. And he was a superstar. He would have been a superstar in any era. He came along in a time when America was desperate for inspiring heroes. Heroes that looked like America.
You black record for the mile of the city. That's Seabiscuit, champion of the home plate. Hit the handful jackpot.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ken Bradley greeting you from San Diego Race Course in Arcadia, California. You are
At the beginning of his career, about half the people in America had radios. By the end of it, virtually everybody did. And there were 8 million seconds. During the racing season, about once a week, it became an American ritual to gather around the radio and listen to him run. And it had a lot to do with why he became such a huge celebrity in America. He was one of the first big radio stars.
In the spring of 1938, Seabiscuit made headlines almost every day as breathless sports writers broke the news that the Howard Bay would at last meet his arch-rival, War Admiral, in a full-field race at Boston's Suffolk Downs. All over the country, magazines and newspapers featured side-by-side photographs of the celebrity horses, offering endless comparisons of their relative size and speed and merit. Sports writers generously polled fans for their predictions and composed lengthy editorials on the likely outcome of the race. I am one of the narrow-minded group who has seen War Admiral run too often, one columnist wrote. Steve Seabiscuit a chance for anything better than a season course this year.
People looking at War Admiral saw a magnificent horse. Good looking, came from an illustrious background, came from an aristocratic barn. Seabiscuit doesn't have that long, elegant, aristocratic, wide-eyed look of a eagle. He looked like he ought to be drawing a cart with ice behind it someplace.
His fans hailed him as a plain working man, a proletarian, a modern Horatio Alger. This is that fancy little War Admiral, one predicted, and curling into a crest.